Okay. The next speaker I would like to announce is Jaro Karppinen. He is a professor for physical and rehabilitation medicine of the University of Oulu, Finland. And a part of this is the director of rehabilitation services in Southern Karelia, which is a part of Finland, a region of Finland, which he is doing since 2020. He's a researcher with a huge impact and a wide research field covering low back pain and sciatica and environmental, genetic and metabolic risk factors for musculoskeletal disorders. His current focus is set on AI-based analytics of MRI images of the lumbar spine, rehabilitation, intervention at the population level, and on the biopsychosocial treatment pathways in primary health care among patients with low back pain. And the talk today will be about low back pain, entitled Low Back Pain, What Is It About? Please.
Yeah, thank you for being invited to give this keynote speech. So I was instructed by Jaro that it should be sort of a personal research story, focusing, of course, on low back pain. And I will start from my dissertation. So I started my research career before my dissertation long ago, but I will start from my dissertation, and then I give some pieces of puzzle from our epidemiological studies, and then I try to give you an overall picture what low back pain is about. So to start with, so has anyone of you had back pain lasting longer than 2 weeks? One only, 2, 3. Quite good. So less prevalence than it should be. So you have no sort of fetal growth restriction factors. Okay, so I started my dissertation in made my dissertation in 2001. I started, of course, about 4 to 5 years before that, and it was about sciatica and symptoms, genetic factors, and treatment with periradicular infiltration, and it was a really interesting project. So actually it was sort of a learning experience. So I had to design the randomized trial. I had to sort of apply ethics approval. I had to sort of recruit the patients. I had to do the follow-up of the patients. I had to sort of do statistics. I had to do MRI evaluations, and because of my thesis, so I learned to read lumbar spine MRIs, which it was really good for my future. Actually, the result of the trial was non-significant. There is sorry, I don't know what I did. Oh no, so. Slightly shorter, I mean, sort of a quicker response in those who got cortisone plus bupivacaine compared to placebo saline. But anyway, it was fun to do that. And then I did, as a second publication, sort of subgroup analysis, which is, of course, only hypothesis generator, and actually sort of not a big deal. So no one has sort of confirmed the results. So probably I was not on the right track there, but I tried to dig out something. And the third paper was about MRI findings and whether we can sort of predict symptom severity based on MRIs, and we couldn't. So actually, even larger herniations didn't produce more severe symptoms, and that sort of fits well in with the current concept of pain. pain, and actually one of my PhD students is now evaluating in sciatica people the role of psychosocial factors and other factors in relation to sciatica and MRI findings in the older northern Finland birth cohort. I started also to do some genetics there. So actually, at that time, 2002 and 2003, so there were no other genetic studies in spine. There were actually one published in the Finnish Twin registry in 1991 about smoking and heritability, and the first publication from Twins UK was published by Sambrook in 1999. But no candidate gene studies so far, and I will come back to this later. So it was a nice experience to get into genetics during PhD studies. So it was a really comprehensive journey. So randomized trial designing, paper writing, statistics, genetics, and so on. So I'm very pleased with my PhD project. But at the time of my, so when I was not ready yet, I did not have my PhD, so I started to go further because there were some indications that TNF-alpha blockers, infliximab was used in this, would be beneficial for sciatica patients because of the biology there, biology of the disc herniations. And actually the first trial was we sort of did observational study and compared them to historical controls from my thesis, and then we did a proper randomized trial to continue with, and actually in comparison to historical controls, infliximab was effective. And when I presented that at the EASLs many years ago, so US surgeons were talking that now they won't have any jobs, they won't get money because no one will be operated. But in the randomized trial, we showed that there was no difference between the TNF-alpha blocker and saline in the primary outcome, leg pain intensity, or any of the outcomes. But interestingly, in the placebo group, mean straight leg raise was 15 degrees better in 2 hours after the start of the infusion. So the people thought that some magical treatment was given to them and the straight leg raise improved. And that's a sort of a really good indication of the magnitude of placebo effect in back pain or any disease. So luckily I got sort of a startup grant from Finnish Academy in 2002 to sort of start to evaluate low back pain and MRIs included, and we actually there had been a survey, health examination, when these kids were born from between 1st of July 85 to last of June 86, and they had been followed since the birth, and some 6,800 people there, and when they were 18 years, so we tried to pick up all those living within 100 kilometers from Oulu because we wanted to invite them to MRI. And there were actually 3,000 of them, and we finally obtained 67% of them, less than 2,000, and then we invited these people to physical examination at the age of 19 to 20 years, and we got some more than 800, and these we invited to MRI and did that for 558 at the mean age of 21 years. So this was the start of low back pain research in Oulu, actually. And now, at 31 years, we have rescanned more than 400 subjects, but the evaluations are still ongoing, so we haven't finished the evaluations yet. Some sort of pick-ups from this Oulu back study. So very active participation in physical activities in both sexes, and high amount sitting in girls were sort of related to self-reported back pain, and this was a cross-sectional study, so it's not only sort of inactivity, but very high activity which are related to back pain, and actually other studies have confirmed that since this publication. And insufficient sleep quantity or quality was an independent risk factor for neck and low back pain among girls, two-year follow-up. And then multiple musculoskeletal pains appear to have tendency to persist in adolescence. Both psychosocial and lifestyle factors contribute to this vulnerability. This was two-year follow-up. I will speak about this accumulation of risk factors later, but this was the first study to show this accumulation. And regular smoking is bad for young people, but also for older people. And in the previous presentation, you saw the evidence from fetal side that it's bad smoking and stress, and it's the same in musculoskeletal disorders. And high exposure to awkward trunk postures and overall physically demanding job increased the risk of incident low back pain. And one which was fact which was raised in the previous presentation, maternal smoking. Smoking is a risk factor for pains in the offspring at the age of 16, and it's mediated by externalizing factors. And this is not my study, but I think that's one of the sort of key studies in musculoskeletal issues and back pain over the sort of last year. So they had over 11,000 workers from 18 countries, and every fifth of these reported disabling low back pain 14 months after the baseline. And actually, it was not related to occupation and so on. Gender explained something, older age something, somatizing tendency something, but the pain sort of a propensity to baseline, the number of pain sites at baseline was the strongest predictor, explaining in the population about 40% of disabling low back pain. You see nicely that the more pain sites they have, so the more likely disabling low back pain is. So actually, this is sort of an indication that you can sort of extrapolate back pain sort of usable data for prevention and treatment of back pain from individuals with multisite pain. And this was sort of one, I think, good paper, sort of study of us showing accumulation of risk factors and actually externalizing behavior cluster. Cluster was a really sort of more likely to have persistent multisite pain, and in girls also multiple risk behaviors, and in boys sedentary cluster, but obese clusters had no significant association. I will show you later how these clusters behaved, but these clusters, bad clusters, were also related to later at the ages of 25 to 29 unemployment and work disability. So accumulation of psychosocial and lifestyle factors is something to focus on among young adults. And here you see the clusters among girls. Blue is externalizing problems, and then the orange is multiple risk behaviors, which are really high in all other risk factors except obesity. And then there's the obese cluster, gray one, and reference one. So these externalizing problems and multiple risk behaviors were the bad ones. And for instance, these internalizing problems, which means like somatization and introvert like things, that they are not highly prevalent in any of these clusters. In boys, similar, but there was externalizing behavior and sedentary cluster, one obese cluster, and the reference one. But similar findings in boys, but in girls it was more pronounced. And then we started also doing research on Northern Finland birth cohort 1966 with expected date of birth in 1966. So they are now over 50 years at the moment, and I came into picture after this 31-year health examination. So I was planning the 46-year health examination and what kind of musculoskeletal issues we should have there. And from both birth cohorts, we have data on employment, hospitalizations, sick leaves, and many other things. So they are quite usable. And in this older birth cohort, we have scanned 1,500 individuals at a mean age of 47 years. And so far, we have rescanned about 250 of these 10 years later. And it's going on. Results from this, and this is size of L4 vertebra, and birth weight and infant peak weight velocity were positively associated with midlife vertebral cross-sectional area among both sexes. And among women, body mass index at birth, this adiposity peak, adiposity rebound, and pubertal takeoff were positively associated with these vertebral sites. But among men, only high body mass index at adiposity rebound was associated with large vertebral sites. And length and height variables were associated with vertebral sites only if adult height was not included. And gestational age and timing of growth were not associated. So this is 47-year follow-up. And participation at least once a week in one or more high-impact sports in adulthood was associated with large vertebral size among middle-aged women, but not among men. I will show that when we measure that objectively the physical activity, so it is also relevant in men. And then we did also sort of lifetime body mass trajectories, stable slim, stable average, and early onset overweight, where we identified them among both sexes. And this stable slim had smallest vertebral size, and the early onset overweight that highlighted in blue. So it had 118.6 square millimeters larger among men and 106.1 square millimeter larger among women. So lifetime body mass index has impact on vertebral size. And daily amount of moderate to vigorous physical activity, this was now objective measurement of physical activity, was significantly and positively associated to vertebral size in both sexes. And for every minute per day of moderate to vigorous physical activity, men had 0.71 and women 0.90 square millimeter larger vertebral size. And among men, increased amount of moderate to vigorous physical activity was associated with increased odds of any Modic change, odds ratio of 1.41, and particularly type 2 Modic change. Among women, no such association was found. And last, this is a submitted paper. Larger vertebral size was associated also with lumbar disc herniations. An increase of 1 square centimeter in vertebral size was elevated the odds of disc herniations by 10%, and the association was similar among women and men. So one of now I come to the overall picture, and one of good experiences in my research career was the Lancet low back pain series. So we carried first time in primary care forum in Buxton, UK in 2016, and it took about 2 years to finish these 3 papers, and I'm speaking the context now about the overall picture is from the first paper, Hartwigsen et al. Paper. So these factors are related to persisting low back pain. Genetics, one, biophysical factors, comorbidities, social factors, and psychological factors. These all are relevant. In addition, also symptoms like severity of symptoms or radiating pain, they are associated with a poorer prognosis. And in pain experience, it's not only the nociceptive input from periphery, but it's central pain processing, which affects how you interpret the nociceptive input, and pain and disability, they are not equal. And that's one of the key things to remember. About genetics, these were actually the 2 first papers, and at that time you could publish candidate genes in Science, so it was easy, but nowadays it's impossible. So we have gone further, luckily, and we did a systematic review on these candidate gene associations with disc generation, and the evidence was quite low. Credibility of reported genetic associations was mostly weak, and these were the best: aspirin, collagen 11, growth differentiating factor, sickle tail, and rhombospondin, and matrix metalloproteinase 9. But weak association. And this was something what had been done for a long time. And luckily, now we have gone further to genome-wide association studies. And one of the most beautiful studies is from Francis Williams, showing that there are 2 strong molecular axes, one related to structure, anatomical factors like intervertebral disc, and the other, according to the other existing evidence, to psychological component of pain perception and pain processing. Now we are progressing to exome sequencing and whole genome sequencing, and we have already published some family studies with exome sequencing, but I won't go deeper into details. About the structures, spinal structures. So many of you are evaluating disc generation, and this was a follow-up study with relation to symptoms from 18 to 21 years. And at the imaging, mean age was 21 years, and there was one cluster who had been always painful from 18 to 21, and at the top, people 169 with no pain ever until 21 years. And you can see that there is a association with always painful and recent onset pain. They are more likely to have more sort of a severe degree of disc degeneration. But in the always painful group, there is about 1/4, 1/3 with no degeneration, and in no pain group, there are people, young individuals with degeneration. So it's more complicated than we thought. So yes, at group level, there is evidence that disc degeneration is associated with back pain, but at individual level, when you encounter a patient at your appointment, so you cannot be sure of whether disc degeneration is related to his or her pain or not. And we confirmed also association for disc herniations in the adjusted model over 2 odds ratio, and we confirmed the results also in the Western Australia birth cohort with DD. Already at one level it was raised odds ratio, and at 2 levels or more it was even higher. And the same with disc herniations. So if a young individual at age of 27 had disc herniation at 2 levels or more, so almost 6 times higher likelihood of being in the painful trajectory. There were 2 trajectories, painful and match controls. But it's not so simple. We published 1 year ago that study showing that mental symptoms affect pain experience. If the people with DD had mental distress, so the association was not obvious anymore. And now, in the most recent paper, so when insomnia and mental distress, psychological symptoms co-occur, so it does, disc degeneration does not associate with pain at all. And this is to remind one of the sort of beautiful studies that degeneration is really prevalent also among asymptomatic individuals, whether it's about signal intensity loss, sort of plaque discs or disc height loss, or facet degeneration, or disc bulges, or disc protrusions. They are prevalent in asymptomatic population as well. So you have to remind this. And about Modic changes, we did a systematic review. Actually, we did one in 2008, and then we claimed that Modic changes are specific low back pain phenotype. But in this review, half of the studies, 15 out of 30, showed no association. Actually, one study from Spain indicate that Modic changes are a protective factor. So it's inconsistent, and lots of things to study further in Disc for All for this purpose. And one sort of clinical study we had where we had a 2-year follow-up, and we showed nicely that the extent of type 1 Modic changes was associated with the persistence of symptoms. When Modic type 1 changes decreased, so symptoms also improved. And the last, so we did this also in the older birth cohort, and showed that especially type 1 Modic changes were associated with sort of more severe pain, and especially when they were larger in size. About comorbidities, asthma, diabetes, poor mental health, psychological distress, they are sort of associated with risk factors like obesity, smoking, physical inactivity, sleep disturbance. So the same risk factors which we have in pain symptoms, and they affect central pain processing, and they lead development to multisite or widespread pain. And this is sort of important to notice. If one has patients with pain sites at several locations or really large pain areas, so usually these patients are not really quick to recover. So it takes more time, and they are more challenging to treat, these patients. So we showed that existence of comorbidities 2 or more was related to severity of pain symptoms. So they should be considered comorbidities. And in a lot more recent paper, we saw that there is a metabolic cluster with hypertension or obesity, not so much diabetes, but hypertension and obesity, and then psychiatric cluster with mental health disorders, respiratory diseases, and substance abuse, and they were related to they had higher odds of daily pain, a higher mean pain intensity, body substance, and the number of pain sites. And odds for severe musculoskeletal pain were really higher in these 2 clusters. So if you have hypertension or if you have mental health problems, it's likely that your symptoms are more severe than if you don't have them. And then social factors, this is also from the Oderberg cohort. Factors like unemployment and occupational factors are related to multisite musculoskeletal pain. And among men also low household income. Maybe it's for men it's more important to get enough money, but low household income was related. Among women, living alone was a protective factor. You may ask why is that. Maybe it's they have been living with a man and now they are more satisfied living alone after that stupid man. I don't know. That's only my sort of thought. And then we did also evaluate in sort of Finnish last study risk factors for sciatica leading to hospitalization, and there are also sort of occupational factors which are related to persistence of sciatica or hospitalization because of sciatica. So they exist. And this is sort of a recent paper of us. So we did a whole population, whole Finland, whole Sweden, whole Norway, whole Denmark. From register, we picked up patients with OA and chronic low back pain. So actually this is the first publication to show how chronic low back pain can be picked up from registers. And in Finland, we had 113,000 patients with chronic low back pain. And we got population match controls equal amount for them. And the prevalence of chronic low back pain in Finland is 2.7% in specialized care, and when you include also primary care, so it's 5.8%. So it's not. It's quite big actually. But here also social factors are related to sort of these chronic low back pain. Employment rates were lower among patients with chronic low back pain, and disposable income was lower. Whether it's egg or hen, I don't know. I think it's both. It's more likely egg than hen, but it may be working both ways. And then chronic low back patients had doubled likelihood of comorbidities evaluated with the Eddingshauser comorbidity index. So social factors are important in musculoskeletal conditions. And psychological symptoms, of course, from the same study I showed earlier, depression and anxiety. And recent evidence, there are many, I didn't include them, indicate that psychological symptoms are probably the most important ones in clinics when you see patients and you evaluate them. So you have to sort of evaluate psychosocial profile, psychological symptoms, and so on. And now I'm approaching the end. So we did sort of a machine learning study from the UK Biobank. I will show in the next slide the study population, and it was done in McGill, and we were sort of statistics there. But I think this is one of the nicest things I've been involved with, and we evaluated 99 factors: physical health, mental health, socio-demographic factors, and got final model which explained 14% of the variance of number of existing pain sites. So it was the pain sites, multiple pain, which I showed you previously, and in this study we also showed that multiple pain sites is a really good outcome for this kind of study. Not back pain, but multiple pain. And it was the variance was explained mostly by mood. You see there on the right, the uppermost panel, sleep and neurotism. These were the three most important factors. Demographics and occupational measures explained the least variance. So they were not important, explaining why some have this persisting pain. And here you see sort of the study sort of discovery cohort included almost 500,000 people, no brain MRI at follow-up, and this was in the UK Biobank. Validation cohort almost 50,000 with 9-year follow-up, and then was also online pain-related survey at 10 years. And validation was done, replication was done in Northern Finland Perth cohort cross-sectional at 46 years, over 5,000, follow-up from 31 to 46, almost 5,000. And then also in Canadian Prevent AD, which is relatives of Alzheimer's disease patients. They didn't have any Alzheimer, but it was a small trial existing in Canada, and these were also included here. And the results are sort of equal in all these cohorts. Actually, the model was trained irrespective of acute and chronic pain, but it did better. So the second from the right, you see orange is acute pain from different sites, and red is chronic pain. So Cohen's D, sort of the explanatory power, is better for chronic pain, and it's best for pain all over body, which is fibromyalgia, and least with knees and back pain. But basically, all areas behave in a similar way. And actually, model was trained with back pain, and it worked for other pain sites as well. So it's universal. You can make a shorter model, and it works for other pain sites. And the risk score for pain showed good to excellent performance for classifying participants with chronic pain conditions from pain-free participants. And it did well also in secondary sort of more severe outcomes, overall health rating, use of opioids, and disability due to sickness. So it's not only pain experience, but also these work disability, opioid use, which are big problems in clinics. It is good also for these outcomes. And these are, for your interest, I put that weights of motor features to the risk score. So strongest risk factors were frequent tiredness, lethargy, related to mood, sleeplessness, insomnia, difficulty waking up, both related to sleep and body mass index. And protecting factor sleep duration, although we know that from other studies that if you sleep too long, it's not good. But here sleep duration was a protecting factor. Weekly alcohol frequency, in Finland that does not work. If you say Finnish men that, the more you drink, the better, so they drink really heavily. So it doesn't work in Finland, but here it works in Spain. Grip strength, which is an indicator of muscular strength, and then paid or self-employed. So if you are self-employed, so you try to sort of survive. And adjusted risk score, it was adjusted for the number of pain sites at baseline, age of the individual, and follow-up time. So the higher the risk score, the more likely that pain will spread. And the lower the risk score, the more likely it's that pain will improve. And the sort of based on the ranking of these weight of individual risk factors, so mood was the earliest contributor to the spreading of pain, and occupation ranked last. So mood, anthropometrics, neurotism, and sleep, and so on. And then to simplify the model by reducing the number of features, the model was retrained by incrementally adding the items explaining the most variance. And a new risk score was formed, summing binarized answers to 6 questions. Actually, this is really, and now I'm doing that, I'm planning now, beginning of next year, so we do in primary care in Finland, so we evaluate all patients referred to physiotherapy in relation to this score, and we sort of plan internet-based treatments for obesity. We have something working in Finland, and sleep. Yeah, we have something not ideal, but that's my the next sort of task. And you see the 6 questions over there. So simple questions like body mass index. Is it over 30 or not? Do you have any problems while sleeping? Do you wake up? And things like that. Really easy for clinicians to sort of inquire these. And none of these features are directly related to pain or attitudes towards pain, which is good. They are unrelated to pain. And actually, in the UK Biobank online follow-up, 10-year follow-up, this SPARES risk score was associated with interference of pain, symptom severity. You see there, the higher the score, the worse the situation is. And similar results were obtained in the Northern Finland cohort. The higher the score, this 0 to 6 score. So it works in these populations. And last 2 slides more. So what are the implications of this for treatment? I could speak a whole day about treatment of low back pain to you, but 1 hour is not enough for that purpose. But I would show that actually when you sort of evaluate a person there, so there are modifiable factors like cognitions, emotions, physical activity, loading demands, lifestyle. You can modify these. There are non-modifiable factors like pathoanatomy, socioeconomic. Yeah, it's really difficult to modify culture, past history, genetics. And then there are these comorbidities, social sort of situation, and neuroendocrine immune things. And then in the encounter of professional and patient, so there are patients have their own history and own story, expectations, goals, and other things. And clinicians also have their history. So every clinician is a human. Maybe you didn't know this, but they are humans. And they have their own expectations, which they can transfer to patients. And this communication between patient and clinician, that's the vital thing. Poor communication ruins everything, everything. No hope after that. And this cognitive functional therapy is something we are doing in Finland. That's from Peter O'Sullivan, who came in 2016 to sort of educate some of our physiotherapists, which I had recruited, and also some doctors, but mostly physiotherapists. It's making sense of pain. So first is the story patient has, and then it's individualized explanation, and patient has to understand him or herself why I have this persisting pain. So it's making sense of pain. That's really, really important. And then it's exposure with control. So, and it's not only physical exposure, it's also mental exposure. You need both. Many patients think that they cannot bend their backs. So we have to show them they can. Back is really strong, unless there is a really large extrusion or something like that. Usually it holds. And then it includes also lifestyle changes, promoting positive physical, social, and psychological health. And recent study, probably some of you know this, so the first time that Restore in Australia that actually you can influence patients' symptoms over 1 year. And they had also sort of feedback system here, but it didn't influence anything. So making sense of pain, exposure, and lifestyle things. They were the main things. And it was, the median was 7 physiotherapist consultations. So physiotherapists, no doctors, physiotherapist consultation over 12 weeks, and then 1 booster at 6 months. And it was cost effective as well. And fears and many other outcomes. I didn't want to show you all of this, but everything was positive. Oh, there has been some criticism. You couldn't blind clinicians and patients here, so they knew what kind of treatment. But this is the first time I don't see the regression to mean effect in a clinical trial. First time in my life. So I'm happy. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Jaro, for this interesting talk. Questions? Okay.
Thanks, Jaro. Fantastic presentation, as always. I'm just interested, so obviously the psychological element plays a really important role in chronic pain particularly. But how do you separate out whether the mental instability or the sleeplessness, etc., are because of the pain or because the pain is because of those? How do you separate what's the causative factor? So
whether it's before pain or after pain. Yeah, but actually it doesn't matter. So it can be both ways, of course, and both ways. So it's like in this vital growth restriction, stress, and if you are really anxious and depressive, so it's a constant stress and neuroinflammation here in the limbic system, which sort of increases the input in central nervous system. So I don't think it matters. So anyway, so you have to get them on the right track, and it's not easy. So if we try to do that in the primary care without any psychiatrist, any psychologist, only with help of some internet-based therapists and physiotherapists sort of expertise. So it's not easy. Maybe the other factors, except mood, we can influence better. Although I know from personal experience that obesity is also a difficult condition. But I hope that we can influence them. But I think it's both ways.
Again, that can be caused by the pain as well, can't it?
Yeah.
So do you think you just get this vicious circle that as soon as you have the pain, then you have the depression and obesity and things because you can't do the same exercise, and that just makes things a lot worse. So you kind of need to stop that circle, really.
Yeah, I don't know whether you have watched ever. So Peter is doing sometime now. He did in March in London training, and I've been included in one couple before Corona, and our sort of physiotherapists also use the same method. So we do a drawing. To show the patient tells the story, and we do a drawing, and then try to depict what factors are there at the roots of the pain symptoms, and try to get the patient sort of accept and understand, making sense.
Thank you, Jaro. So I'm Simo Saarakkala from the University of Oulu, same unit, and Jaro is working, and I'm kind of thinking about the like low back pain, little bit correspondingly to like a knee osteoarthritis, which I mean I have also done research like 20 years, and it looks to me that the symptoms are not that much explained by the structural features, and now we are a community of Disc for All here for a lot of biomedical engineers. So what would be your message to this community? Should we give up to study like structures, or do you believe there will be associations between the structure and pain or other symptoms in general?
So. I had a call today from my sort of health region, and my sort of my employee next in rank sort of told that one of our doctors had really huge back problem, and now is under sort of scrutiny for operation. And there are things we cannot prevent. And even elective surgery. So now the Australians are doing a randomized trial on lumbar spinal stenosis surgery versus sham surgery, like they have done in shoulder or knee meniscus problems. And I'm pretty sure that the effect of surgery is not that large as the orthopedic surgeons think it is, and there is less evidence that elective surgery has downgraded, at least in Scandinavia, not in the US or Brazil, but in Finland and Scandinavia, and I think in Europe elsewhere as well. So, but there are structural problems, and Nash and Terence will give probably us some answers when the structural problems are relevant, when not. But nevertheless, if you don't have any cure, any surgery for the structural problems, so you have to go on and sort of make the life of the individual easier. Lifestyle things, maybe work adjustments and things like that. But life goes on anyway. Even after this nociceptive structural irritation. I don't have a sort of a explanation yet for that. It's too complicated, but I know that you will ask me whether engineers are needed. Yes, you are needed, and I need you, and you are really invaluable.
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation. Kindly related to this question. There are many research groups focusing on the assessment of pain, and chronic low back pain is one of the most studied ones, by analyzing physiological signals, so EEG, heart rate, sweat secretion, so on and so forth. What do you think about, and do you think that digital technologies can play a role in general in this research field? You mean biosignals like exactly. Serum markers or anything? So exactly. Actually, in the study which I showed last, brain MRIs, functional MRIs, and large panel of serum samples and genetic results were also included, but they didn't
add much value to this biopsychosocial model. Actually, the associations were quite weak, and mostly they associated with this psychosocial profile, not with the pain.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sorry. Thank you, Jaro. Very beautiful presentation. I also wanted to ask about like the relation, if it's like A to B or B to A. And I really like that you talked a little bit about the placebo effect in the beginning of your talk. So, for example, if we have, let's say, working out, is it pain that's making patients not work out, or is it not working out that's leading to pain? And then we would ask these patients, like, okay, how about you start working out, and then we see that the pain reduced. Yeah. How can we account for the placebo effect in this case, for example?
No, so it's true. So. When we do interventions, so there is the possible biological sort of factor which we produce, like for medicines. But there's always the possible factor, and you cannot get rid of that. And actually, I'm sort of using that deliberately when I see patients. So I try to be empathic, or actually I am empathic. So even it's a really disastrous patient case, so I always find something positive in that for the patient. And even so there was one sort of good study. I've shown that to medical students done in Spain. So they did some kind of electrical treatment, and it was randomized to active electricity treatment, sham treatment, and then there was two different physiotherapists. The other was sort of a cold type, not looking at the patient, and the other was empathetic, and you can imagine which treatment was the best. I don't have to give the answer. You know that.
We have time for one last question from Bart. 2 minutes.
Thank you. Very, very interesting study. And you show that nothing in medicine is simple. It's multifactorial, is systemic. So I absolutely totally agree. And the way to treat the patient is using this. Yeah. But then on the other hand, you show a score where you just put everything into one number, which I see in all parts of medicine, that everybody likes to do this. But that's contradictory to the fact that it's not simple. So why do you simplify it? Or how do you use simplifications? How do you use the... It's complicated. And if you keep it really too complicated, so my sort of physicians and physiotherapists, they are now even, they are perplexed, and I have to give lectures to them and to show the sort of key issues, and to simplify it, so makes it easier for them to comprehend, and then slowly they can get to the sort of larger picture. And actually, to give a sort of so we are reporting maybe in 1 or 2 months' time, a sort of by primary care sort of a benchmarking control trial where we actually have stratified primary care low back patients according to psychosocial profile using a start back tool. And then those with low risk, we don't do anything. So we give them advice, a patient education booklet, and contact information if they get the problem gets worse or it doesn't improve. But those with high psychosocial profile, it doesn't matter whether you use Startback tool or Örebro musculoskeletal pain screening questionnaire. So you can pick up these patients, and we focus on them. We get psychologically oriented treatment them, and we show good results.
Thank you very much. This is a really nice word to finish, good results. Thank you, Jaro, again for your talk and for the nice discussion. So I invite everyone to have the lunchbox.
So lunchboxes are just outside. So help yourself, and then you can use an open area outside to eat, or you can it in the corridor.